everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my March wrap-up. So you may have noticed that I wasn't filming my regular videos in March. I took a little bit of a break from my regular content, and so due to that, I wasn't paying as much attention throughout the month as to how my reading month was going. And I was reading quite a few bigger books, and I didn't think that I was having the greatest reading month of all time. However, then it came time to work out my statistics, and as you will see in a moment, I had a much better reading month than what I had originally thought. Well, I actually had an amazing reading month. So let's jump straight into those statistics and we'll talk about them. So I read a total of 21 books. That was made up of 18 novels, 2 children's novels, and 1 essay. I read 8 books in physical format. I read 3 ebooks, and I listened to 10 audiobooks. I read 8 books that I owned and 3 books from the library. I read a total of 7,566 pages, which averaged out to a total of 244 pages per day, which I was really happy with, keeping that above my 200 page kind of level where I like to keep that at. The shortest book that I read was 52 pages, which was an essay, which was the essay that I read. And the longest book that I read was 880 pages. I actually read, I think, 3 or 4 books this month that were all over 500 pages. The highest star rating that I gave was that I actually gave 3 different books 5 stars. One of those was a reread, but I did give 2 new to me books 5 stars in March, which is amazing for me. I did also give 3 books 2.5 stars. That was my lowest rating, and my average star rating for the month was 3.71 stars, which is such a good average rating for me. It's probably one of the highest average star ratings that I've ever had in a month, so I'm really happy with that. Like I said, overall, just in terms of number of books and overall ratings, I was having a pretty stellar reading month. So due to me not filming my regular videos, I didn't end up filming a mid-month wrap-up, so I do have 21 books to get through in this video, so I'm going to try go through them as quickly as possible. So let's jump straight in and talk about all of those 21 books. So the first book that I finished in the month was an audiobook. I actually listened to the majority of the audiobook in February, but I did finish it in March, and that was European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman by Theodora Goss. So this is the second book in a series. I think the series is called The Extraordinary Adventures of the Athena Club, and the first book followed the daughter of Dr. Jekyll, and it's got a lot of like historical like characters from like literature. So it's got like the daughter of Dr. Moreau. It's not, in addition to Dr. Jekyll's daughter, it has Mr. Hyde's daughter. There's Justine Frankenstein. There's a lot of like characters like that. Sherlock and Watson play a part in the series. And I really enjoy all of that historical kind of aspect. The story is told in such a way that it is the characters telling you the story as after it's already happened. And so in that format, you've got one character telling the story, and then you've got the other characters piping in saying, that's not how it happened, or it happened like this, or I never said that type of thing. So it is a lot of kind of banter and back and forth. So I don't know how this would go if you read it in physical format. I listened to it on audio, and I do think it is a really good way to experience the book. It is narrated by Kate Redding, which I do enjoy. So as I mentioned, I do enjoy the historical aspects. For some reason, I just don't connect emotionally to any of these characters. I do still really enjoy it, but I don't know. I just don't connect emotionally to any of them. I was also a little bit frustrated because this book is super long. It's over 700 pages, and at least the last quarter, if not the last third of the book, is pure setup for the third book in what's going to be a trilogy, and I find that a little bit frustrating. But overall, I did enjoy the book, and I gave it 3.5 stars. I then listened on audio to Before We Were Strangers by Brenda Novak. This one is narrated on audio by Anna Marie Gideon. This is an adult thriller about a little girl who hears her parents arguing one night, and then the next morning when she gets up, her mother is gone, and she never sees her mother again. No one ever hears from her again. And she is now an adult, and she's returning to the small town where she grew up, basically to find out what happened to her mother. And so we're following that story. I really enjoyed all of the character interactions and relationships and everything going on there. I also really liked that all of the characters are flawed. Like, even the good characters have things going on where you're like, maybe not the best decisions, and they are dealing with those types of things, which I enjoyed. I also liked the commentary in there kind of a little bit on if you have a parent who is very cold and maybe very strict, does that make them a bad person? So I found that kind of commentary pretty interesting. The main problem I had with this book is that it was just very predictable. There were no real twists and turns in the plot, and I just wasn't surprised by anything in it, but I did enjoy the book overall, and I gave that 3.5 stars. I then listened on audio to We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is the essay that I read. It is narrated on audio by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie herself, and this is just a non-fiction essay based on her TED Talk about why we should all be feminists and about feminism in general. I loved this. I thought it was so beautifully written. It's not even that it necessarily has many things in there that are very different, like very different ideas or notions that I've not heard before, but she just writes about them so eloquently and so beautifully that it made me really think, but it made me really passionate about the issues in it. There were so many great quotes in there, and I did genuinely really, really love this, and I gave it 5 stars. I then listened to another audiobook, which was Macy McMillan and the Rainbow Goddess by Shari Green. This one is narrated on audio by Tara Sands. So this is a middle grade novel, and it follows a little girl who has a hearing impairment, and her life is going through some big changes. It's always growing up, it was just her and her mother. However, her mother is about to be remarried to, is about to get married for the first time to this new man, and he has 2 daughters, and there's not only that going on, but they are going to be relocating to his home. And so the book, I really did enjoy this. I thought it had I liked that the main character had hearing impairment. I thought that was a really a fun inclusion for a middle grade book. I liked the diversity. I really liked the commentary in there on friendship and how important friendships can be. But the main thing I loved about it was just all the messages in there for like middle grade readers about changes in your life and trying to accept change, especially when it's not something necessarily that you want to happen. I did genuinely really enjoy this book, and I gave it 4 stars. I then completed my first physical book for the month, which was Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. This is the 900-page beast, or 880 pages that I read, so obviously it took me a little while to get through. This is the 3rd and final book in the Dark Artifices trilogy, and I did really enjoy this. Cassandra Clare does fall into the kind of trap in YA of feeling like she has to have all of her characters be in these like great romances, but I do enjoy it because I do love all of the characters and all of the relationships. I do also really love all of the diversity in the relationships. We have gay relationships, lesbian relationships, bisexual relationships, interracial relationships, polyamorous relationships. So there's a lot in there which I really, really loved. There is also an aspect of the book in the middle where we're kind of in a different location, I guess you could say. I don't want to spoil anything, and I love that type of thing. Like, if you've read it, you'll know what I'm talking about, and I love that type of aspect when it's included in novels, so I really enjoyed that. And there's one thread to the novel that I was hoping, was going to be tied up, and it's not. I assume it is going to be a factor in future series written by Cassandra Clare, or at least I hope, because I do really want to find out more about that. But overall, I did genuinely really enjoy this book as well, and I gave this one 4.25 stars. I then read one of my NetGalley books, which was The Widow Next Door by L.A. Detweiler. This is a thriller novel that's about a young couple who move into a new home, and there is an elderly woman living next door. I assumed going into this that it was about going to be told from the perspective of one of the people in the couple, but it's not. It is actually told from the perspective of the elderly lady. And so I did enjoy the themes of trying to figure out who is the sinister one. Is it both of them? Or is it neither of them? Is it one or the other? I did enjoy all of that kind of aspect of it. However, a lot of this book is just really, really boring. We get so much stuff in there that's just this elderly lady sitting in a rocking chair, looking out her window, getting up to make cups of tea, petting her cat, and it was just like, yeah, okay, that's all great, but it was really mundane and really boring. And then the ending just like didn't really do anything to save it for me. So in the end, I only gave that a 2.5 star rating. I then read another audiobook, which was The Perennials by Julie Cantrell. This is a women's fiction novel that is about a woman who has always had a very strained relationship with her sister from when she was quite young, and she is returning to the town where she grew up for anniversary celebrations for her parents, and we're just kind of dealing with that situation. I enjoyed this enough. I think that I liked the main character, and I liked the romance, but I thought there was a lot, there was like a character redemption in there that I didn't buy into it. I was just like, I don't feel like there's been enough done for me to feel like this character should be redeemed. This book does have some Christian themes. I didn't find it too heavy-handed as a non-Christian reader, so I found that okay. It is narrated on audio by Brittany Priestley. I don't know if I said the narrator. So overall, it was just kind of okay, and I gave it 3 stars. I then read The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. So I did a buddy read of this with my friend Michelle, who's one of my subscribers, and we had very different opinions about this book. I enjoyed it a lot more than Michelle did. I think Michelle gave this 2 stars. So if you don't know, this is a mystery novel that is set kind of in this old estate in the country, and it's historical in nature, and we have a character named Evelyn Hardcastle who is dying at this kind of party that's taking place there, and every morning the main character wakes up in a new body and has to try and figure out what's going on with this death. So the main complaints that people would have about this, from what I can tell, is that it is super confusing. There's so much going on. You're just kind of thrown in the deep end. You don't know what the hell's going on. There's so many characters. It is very hard to follow which character is which and what's going on with all of that. I really enjoyed it because I really enjoyed seeing him weave everything together. You have different parts, and I enjoyed, you'd follow it in one day, and then like 3 days later you would see it again from a different perspective and be like, oh, that's why that happened with this and this happened with this. I had a lot of theories. Some of my theories were correct. I really genuinely did enjoy it. There's a part at the end that I thought was super underdeveloped and we didn't get enough information on, and was just kind of put out there, and then again we didn't get enough information on it, and I found that frustrating. So I could see why a lot of people wouldn't enjoy this, but I did really enjoy it, and I gave it 4 stars. I then listened on audio to The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, which is narrated by Carly Robbins. This is an adult romance that follows a female character named Stella who has autism, and she hires a male escort named Michael to kind of help her with sex and intimacy. She's getting to that stage in her life where she's thinking about that she maybe wants to settle down, maybe have kids, and she's not sure how she's ever going to achieve that because she really struggles with sex and intimacy due to her autism. And so she hires Michael to help her. I really loved this. I loved the romance. I thought the 2 main characters had amazing chemistry. There's a lot of steamy scenes in there. I thought they were really well done. I thought the author did a really great job of having Michael be this quite alpha male character, but without being a dickhead, which, let's face it, is a really fine line to walk sometimes in romance novels. I actually gave this, there's also a lot of talk in there about consent with the romance and all of the sexual stuff going on in there and stuff, which I really enjoyed. I actually gave this 5 stars. It is probably my favorite romance that I've ever read, and I genuinely really loved it. I then reread Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This is an adult sci-fi novel that follows 2 characters who, when they were at university, were trying to discover how to become EOs, which are extraordinaries, which are basically people with like special abilities. We then follow them 10 years later when they are now mortal enemies, and one of them has recently escaped from prison. I really love this book. I gave it 5 stars when I originally read it. I gave it 5 stars on reread. I really love all of the themes on here about good versus evil, or what is good, what is evil. Is anyone truly good, or is it just that some people who we consider to be good, it's just that maybe their plans and what they want to happen falls into what we as society consider to be more acceptable? There's just so much going on in here. I love all of the characters, love all of the themes. Really enjoyed this. Like I said, I gave this 5 stars. I then read Rub Down by Lee Redhead. This is the 2nd book in the Simone Kirsch series, which is a series that follows a main character who's basically a stripper turned private detective. It is an Australian author. The book is very Australian. It feels very Australian in the language and just with everything going on in it. I don't think it would translate well to international markets. It's not well written, really. There's a lot going on. It's very graphic in every way, sexually, violence, drug use. There's just a lot going on in there. I genuinely don't think these are good books, but I do enjoy them for what they are, and in the end I gave it 2.5 stars. I then listened on audio to Becoming by Michelle Obama, which is narrated by Michelle Obama herself, and I really enjoyed this book as well. This is obviously Michelle Obama's memoir, and it follows her life right from when she was a kid all through her childhood up until she meets Barack, and Barack becomes president, and through the presidency. I really loved this. I found it so interesting that there was so much about Michelle that I could relate to, despite the fact that we have very different upbringings and backgrounds, and there was just so much in there that I, like I said, really related to and I really took away. I have always loved the Obamas, so I was always going to probably enjoy this book, and I did. I found it very empowering. I think Michelle Obama is an amazing woman. It felt very honest. I just really, really enjoyed it, and in the end I gave that 4.5 stars. Next, I listened on audio to a book called How to Be Second Best by Jessica Detman. This is another Australian book. This is, again, a women's fiction. It basically follows this woman who, when she had given birth to her second child and her daughter was 3 weeks old, her husband called their daughter by the wrong name. And so through that, she discovers that her husband has another baby with another woman, and he ends up leaving her and marrying this other woman. And it's now several years later. I think her daughter is 3. She's got an older son. And her husband has always managed to her ex-husband has always managed to kind of keep her on a string and leave her feeling like one day he's maybe going to come back to her and he's only left her because she's the stronger one and the other woman needs him more, type of situation. And through that circumstances, she's ended up providing a lot of free childcare for her ex-husband and the new wife. She looks after their daughter all of the time, when they go on holidays, when they go away for weekends, just during the day, takes her to all of her activities, all of that type of thing. I really enjoyed this book. It is narrated on audio by Michaela Bannis, who is an Australian actress. I really liked the commentary in there on not always having to be the best version of yourself, that sometimes in trying to be the perfect person, that sometimes it is okay to just take a step back and maybe be the second best version of yourself. There is also a lot in there on the need to have an amicable relationship with someone who you have children with, and still needing to co-parent with that person. And I really enjoyed all of that in there as well. I just genuinely thought this was a really enjoyable read, and I gave it 3.75 stars. I then read Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. This is the sequel to Vicious. This book is significantly longer than the first one. So I can't really obviously say what this is about, but it does follow the events of the first book. We get some new characters in here. I enjoyed the new characters and all of the new powers and everything going on in here. I still enjoy like the themes. For me, this book didn't quite live up to the first one. It jumps around a lot in terms of time periods. We get a lot of 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 14 years ago, 1 week ago, a day ago, and it just does kind of jump around a lot, which can be a little bit confusing at times. There is also some character threads and stuff in here that are just not tied off. We just don't get any kind of resolution to them, which, knowing that this is left very open for a third book, would maybe be okay, except it frustrates me when we don't have any clear deal or there's no confirmation that we are going to have a third book. And so for those storylines to not be tied up or fleshed out enough, I did find a little bit frustrating. But overall, I did enjoy the book, and in the end, I gave this one 3.75 stars as well. I then read Babysitters on Board by Anne M. Martin. This is the first super special in the Babysitters Club series. Excuse me. It is a little bit longer than the traditional Babysitters Club books, and instead of following one babysitter, we get chapters from all different perspectives. And this one is just about the babysitters going on cruise and then to Disneyland. This was okay. Nothing super amazing, but I did enjoy it, and I gave this 3.5 stars. I then listened on audio to An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. This is narrated by Sean Crisden and Isa Davis. So this is a literary fiction story that is about an African-American couple who, the synopsis doesn't give very much away, so I don't want to give too much away, but it's basically about them a year and a half into their marriage. There's this really awful event that takes place that basically changes the course of their relationship forever. I enjoyed this book somewhat. I thought it had some really interesting commentary on some social justice topics, and obviously about racism and privilege and all of those types of issues that I did find really interesting. But overall, I just didn't connect to the story at all. I liked that the characters were flawed. I think that it would have been easy, due to what takes place in this novel, for it for the author to make the characters these really good, perfect characters who something bad just happened to happen to. And I like that the author didn't fall into that trap. She was happy to have flawed characters who maybe aren't always the best people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this totally awful thing obviously should happen to them. Like I said though, I just really couldn't connect to this story or the characters, but I did think it had some really interesting stuff going on in there. So in the end, I gave that 3.5 stars. Next, I read Cherry Pie by Lee Redhead. I managed to get an e-copy of this one from my library. It is the third book in the series. Again, pretty much similar things to what I said to the last one. I find it enjoyable. I don't think it's the best written. I enjoyed this one a little bit more. However, and so originally I think I said in my vlog that I gave it a 2.75, which is a touch above where I gave the first two books. But then thinking about it, I realized that I just don't think I could give it that, because this one has a prologue, and after the prologue it's like 2 days earlier, and then you go back and you get the events leading up to that point. But it's not 2 days earlier. It's very clearly at least a week, if not like 2 weeks. And then the events that happen in the prologue don't properly tie into what happens later on. When I was thinking about that, I was like, I just can't give that a higher rating, even though I did maybe enjoy this book a little bit more. I'm interested to see where it heads in the final book in the series. So in the end, I gave that one a 2.5 star rating as well. I then read I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. This is a YA contemporary novel that follows twins Noah and Jude, who we follow Noah at the age of 13 and then Jude at the age of 16, and somehow in that time period Noah and Jude have a much more strained relationship, and so we're trying to figure out kind of what's going on with that. I have read Jandy Nelson's other book, The Sky is Everywhere, which I gave 5 stars a couple of years ago. I love that book. I did really enjoy this one as well. I thought she did an amazing job with the 2 different perspectives. At first, when we had the first perspective shift, I was like, no, I want to go back. I was enjoying that perspective, but then as it would keep changing, I would keep enjoying and then not want to swap each time. I really enjoyed both the characters. This book is just... Jandy Nelson's writing is just really... beautifully, it's like very emotionally resonant, I think is what I said in my vlog. I think it's very like lyrical kind of in nature. I think her writing just like flows really well. Like I said, really enjoyed the characters. It's got a lot in here about kind of grief and sexuality and growing up and all of those types of themes. I didn't enjoy this one quite as much as The Sky is Everywhere, but I did really enjoy it, and in the end I gave this one 4.5 stars. I then listened on audio to The Kissing Booth by Beth Reekles. This is the novel that the Netflix movie that came out last year was based on. I had already seen the Netflix movie, and so when my library got this audiobook, I was like, I'm just going to give it a go because it's a fun, cheesy teen romance, and that's exactly what it is. So it's basically about a girl who starts to develop a romance with her best friend's older brother. The best friend's older brother trope, I particularly enjoy. I enjoyed that and the brother's best friend trope. Any kind of romance around those lines on those tropes, I do really enjoy. It is very cheesy. The main male character does fall into a lot of the kind of, you know, alpha dickhead type of aspects, which I don't always enjoy when it goes like that little bit too far. The romance is very over the top as well. Like, you know, they're like 16, but of course they're, you know, so in love, which it's fine, but it is very like over the top in the way it's done. It's probably not the best written, but I do love the trope. I did think it was enjoyable, and in the end I gave it 3.25 stars. I then read Little Miss Stonybrook and Dawn by Anne M. Martin. This is book 15, I think it is, in the Babysitters Club series. This one follows Dawn helping out a couple of her babysitting charges at a new pageant going on in Stonybrook. I didn't enjoy the like whole pageant storyline that much, but there is a B plot about Dawn's younger brother moving away from where they live with their mother to move back to the other side of the country in California to live with their father, and I did think really take a lot out of that storyline. I did enjoy that part of it, so in the end I gave that one 3.25 stars. And then the final book that I read in the month of March was The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This is another book that I had from NetGalley. So it's a thriller. It's about a group of friends who all are going away over the New Year's period, and they're going away to this like Scottish estate that's really isolated, and there's a big snowstorm going on while they're there, and then we know that there's a character who's turned up dead. We don't know who the character is or the circumstances of the death. We kind of have the differing timelines trying to figure out what's going on. We get a few different character perspectives. This one, I don't think the perspective shifts were done particularly well. I did have to keep reminding myself which character's perspective I was reading from. Also, I guessed all of the twists that were going to happen in here. I don't know if everyone would, but I do read a lot of thrillers, and I'm very suspicious by nature, so I always find myself guessing the twist. So I did guess the twist in this, but I did think it was enjoyable enough. It was just nothing amazing. So in the end, I gave that one 3.5 stars. So those are all of the books that I read in March. Like I said, there were 21 of them. I feel like this video was probably way too long, so I apologize. Please comment down below if you've read any of the books that I read, if you've got any thoughts on them, or how your March reading month went. What were you reading and really enjoying, or reading and really hating? I would love to know either of those. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. But that is all I have for this video today. Bye guys!